Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here today with Dr. Dambisa Moyo. She is a Zambian economist. She focuses on the macroeconomy and global affairs. She's author of 4 New York Times bestselling books, and now this is 5, right, Dambisa?
This is 5. Yep.
5. Okay. But Dambisa, and she's also a wonderful, wonderful girlfriend for those of us who are lucky enough to know her and to share lots of friends in common as she and I do and come together over the years. So Dambisa has written books on the economy, and she's a real expert that people have turned to for many, many years. But this is a new book for her. This is how boards work and how they can work better in a chaotic world. Dambisa has served on a whole number of corporate boards for over a decade, and she's helped companies navigate global events from the 2008 financial crisis to pandemic. And so she turned her gaze a little bit from the economy to business. And this is one of the best insider's view of corporate boards, their struggles and their evolution I've ever seen. So Dambisa, thank you for joining us today to talk about your new book.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. Thank you.
So glad to have you. Okay, so let's start with the basics. A lot of people, they kind of know people have corporate boards and there's a board. They don't even know what that is. So let's start with the basics. What at the highest level do boards do? And what's changed about that over the years?
So to put it in context, and I talk about this in the book, the earliest boards actually existed in 1600. So we've had boards around for several centuries. This is really important because the mandate is very clear. In fact, the board mandate has 3 parts. Number 1 is to provide oversight on strategy. So what does this company do? What is it going to be doing it? And where is it doing it? Number 2 is hiring, and on some occasions, having to fire the CEO. And then number 3 is to provide oversight on the cultural frontier. So it's everything from things that are non-negotiables like professionalism and excellence to the whole swathe of issues around ESG, environmental, social, and governance concerns, such as worker advocacy, racial and gender parity, issues around climate change, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really the mandates. 3 parts, and it hasn't changed materially until the last half decade, where really on the back of the 2019 Business Roundtable, and obviously a real challenge to Milton Friedman's assessment of what the core responsibility of a corporation is, and at that point is really when we got more into ESG responsibilities, even though we're not elected.
So you and I, through our very close mutual friend, Melody Hobson, but even I remember when you and I first met, we talked about what my foundation, Lean In, calls being the only woman in a room, and even more so, the only woman of color or Black woman in a room. Diversity is so front and center, and companies want to diversify their workforce. And people talk a lot about diversifying boards. How have you seen diverse boards impact business outcomes? Does it matter? If we get more diverse board members, I'd love to hear your point of view. And then I want to share a personal story, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Look, Sheryl, the jury's in, or to use Melody's phrase, the numbers don't lie. And the fact of the matter is we know that companies and organizations that have diverse boards, diverse C-suites, and diverse workforces actually perform better. Their return on equities are better, far superior to the cost of capital. Their ability to compete is much more enhanced versus other companies that are not. Return on invested capital is much better. The surveys are very clear, whether it's from Harvard or McKinsey, and I've actually put a lot of the statistics in the book. So there's no doubt about it. I think where we need to be a little bit sensitive as people who are overseeing these organizations is to make sure that we're not fighting discrimination with discrimination. In order to compete, we do need the high-performing white guy, and I think that might come across as sometimes somewhat sort of insensitive. But the reality is, for corporations, we want to not only survive, we need to thrive, and that requires the best, regardless of what packaging people come in.
I really agree with that. I agree that we need the best of all talent, but I also agree that getting more diversity on boards. I love Melody's quote, "The numbers don't lie." And my story is about Melody, which is, so I knew Melody, who's our very dear mutual friend, because I joined the Starbucks board and she was on it. She'd been on it before me, and now she's the chair. And I know we're both so excited to see her take that leadership. And what I saw with Melody is not only was she, the only Black woman on the board, but she spoke for Black women, and she spoke for Black men, and she spoke for women, and she spoke out when she saw that bias hit. And I think people don't always know, if you get behind boardrooms are closed doors, which is why I think your book is so important, what really goes on. And there are people like Melody out there, and I know like you, doing the right thing. Okay, but despite the clear benefits, worldwide, women hold 17% of board seats. And you're the economist, we're 50.5% of the global population, right? Great.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
You don't have to be great at numbers to know that 50% of the population and 17% of the board seats, something's off. Companies, and want to increase the number of women and underrepresented minorities by setting quotas, and also by doing other things. If someone's watching out there and they're on a board and they want to help recruit and train women and other underrepresented groups, what advice do you have for them and how to go about getting those great board members?
So Sheryl, as far as I'm concerned, quotas are in a way a necessary evil, in the sense that we've been slow on the uptick as global institutions at meeting today's needs, which require diverse boards. Now, having said that, I think that a lot of progress has been made. I remember 12 years ago when I joined my first boards, I was the only woman and visible minority. Today, that would be completely insane. And so progress is being made. I think that the thing that I find fascinating is not only has the aperture widened because we've stopped just saying, hey, I'm looking for board members. They have to have been a CEO or a CFO or a COO. We've widened the aperture and said, actually, we're now interested in people who've got technology backgrounds or economics backgrounds or health backgrounds who can help us steer these corporations through very challenged environments, even if they haven't come through the traditional C-suite. So that's great for us. But the other thing that I think is happening is that by being more open to where the talent comes from, we actually are able to enhance boards in a way that hasn't happened over several centuries. And specifically, I actually am pretty euphoric because I don't think in the next several years, we're going to need quotas. When I think about joining the board of an Amazon, for example, you look around and you say, who did they pick? They picked Indra Nooyi. Of course, Indra Nooyi should be on the board of Amazon. You should be on the board of Facebook. Melody should be chairing Starbucks. These are women with incredible talent and incredible experience. So no longer, as far as I'm concerned, is the competition against the white guy. The competition is now against women who are phenomenally successful and took your advice and they leaned in.
You're so I think you're so right on the fact that there are so many qualified women out there, and I always love when anyone's leaning in. So you are, and we've talked about this, you're a Black African woman, and you run in a world where it's mostly white men. Now, your experience on the board of being a Black African woman is even more unique. So this is such a great opportunity to kind of get behind that closed door. How has being a Black African woman shaped your personal board experiences?
So I've always, and I think very fortuitously, had been told early in my life that I should never wear it as a burden. I should wear it as something that people will always remember, STAR, which is star. And I do that. I walk into rooms highly prepared, and obviously, given my background, my PhD in economics, my master's from Harvard, I'm very quantitative. And so I do like to go into, I was going to say battle, but very often it's not into battle, it's into real conversations with serious capital allocation decisions and other decisions that corporations have to make on strategy and operations and leadership, armed with information. And I know that my background is different, but I think that that's enhancing and not detracting from organizations. And I think too often, certainly traditionally, we've thought, well, if I don't fit into a particular mold, I'm not going to be seen as adding value. And that's just not the world we live in. relevant. I've had the fortune of traveling to over 80 countries. People want to hear what's happening in China and in Europe and across the emerging markets, not just in the United States. And I bring that unique perspective. And many other people who've got different backgrounds bring unique perspectives that are desperately needed in the boardroom. So as I said, I wear it as a badge of honor. And I urge other people to wear their uniqueness as a badge of honor too.
You know, Maxine Williams, who's the Chief Diversity Officer at Facebook and someone I've just learned so much from over so many years of working together, she always says that it's not enough to hire diversity. You have to harness the power of diversity. That if you hire people with diverse backgrounds, but you have a culture where no one can speak out using their diverse background, you don't get the benefit. And the benefit is building better products, you know, better diversity of thought. And so I love when you say you wear it as a badge of honor, because that means that you are bringing that full experience. So we're still in a pandemic. Now, the pandemic is different in different parts of the world. If you are sitting in India right now versus you and I are both sitting, in California, right? I think you're in California today, right? Yes. You and I are sitting in California.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's different than if you were in India and Brazil. So I know this pandemic is still all over the place, but this is something that people are still navigating. What should be top of mind for boards right now as companies are navigating the fallout of the pandemic, and in some places of the world, the height of the pandemic, and some places what seems like the end-ish?
Sheryl, it's a wonderful question. And I always go to my business Bible, which is a wonderful book by William Thorndike called The Outsiders, which were basically 8 companies that outperformed the stock market, but also outperformed their peers over a long period of time. And he was very curious, what was it about these companies? And ultimately, it was about their ability to allocate capital. And I think one of the most important responsibilities for corporations, if they are going to be successful on issues such as ESG, if they are going to be a tax base, create jobs, be at the tip of the spear in innovation, is that they have to allocate capital as efficiently and as smartly as possible. So what is top of mind for me is looking at the world, thinking about growth, thinking about opportunities for people of all races, all genders, and across the world, and thinking to myself, well, where is the best way to allocate capital so that businesses grow and can support the growth of the global economy in its entirety? And so that, to me, is ultimately the most urgent issue that corporations are dealing with, and everything else falls out of that, whether it's racial and gender diversity, issues of obesity, voter rights. We cannot address those issues, especially since we're not elected, if we don't have thriving and not just surviving companies.
I really agree with that. So thank you for writing a book and giving people behind the scenes look. I highly recommend this book, everyone. You should get it and read it. Thank you for being a good friend to me and so many women. Thank you for being a role model. There aren't enough women who have PhDs in economics. There aren't enough women who have taken the global stage by storm the way you have. And I hope companies read this, follow this, and add more brilliant women leaders like you to their boards. Thanks for joining me.
I really appreciate it. See you soon.